Hi there, and thank you for listening to the Phenex score that I made with Hybrid Tools Phenex. This library is all about encapsulating modern contemporary scoring trends on this sort of bigger scale, all the expensive sounds that we hear on the soundtracks when it comes to using modular technology inside of your scores. We wanted to make a library that was really designed on encapsulating all the most contemporary scoring trends and then infusing a variety of new ones into it. So we really have this giant workhorse library that just nails it when it comes to cinematic basses, nails it when it comes to big pads and strings. We also have these beautiful vocalizations, as you can hear in the demo as well. And about 80% of this demo is made with Phenex. It's really mostly coming from it. It's really capable of stretching your scores into the big cinematic realm, big emotions, big sound. And the way we made it, and it's been taking about 10 months to create it, was by having a huge array of modern analog synthesizers and vintage analog synthesizers in these big modular arrays. We also used analog effects in between them. Moogs, sequentials, Dave Smith, old viruses, and even the old Andromeda synthesizers were all infused into this array of beautiful synth soup. And the end result is just a library that works. This demo was pretty easy to create. It didn't take that long. The instruments just work together. We also have this stack feature, which I'm going to show you. We can actually stack multiple of these cinematic elements together. And the whole idea is just to offer you all these tools so you can compose faster, whether it's those big fat cinematic basses, the big fat pads, the big strings, all the beautiful percussive vocalizations you can hear that are all tempo synced, a variety of analog effects that are used across this demo as well, all just creating this huge collection that allows you to score faster and get that big, expensive cinematic sound that we're all looking for so much. So anyway, welcome to Hybrid Tools Phenex. I'm gonna take you inside of the DAW and we're gonna dissect this demo piece by piece and instrument by instrument. So I'll see you in the DAW. The demo begins with this vivid sort of underscore using a variety of both analog pads and analog basses in combination. You can see them up here. One of the cool things about the library is that all these guys here are deep sample, but every single name here is an individual instrument. And you can see here in this case, I'm combining 3 of them together to get a really, really fat sound. I'm also stacking another analog bass on top of that. It has a little bit of reverb on it. And let me just try to stack those 2 different basses together. And let me unclick stack here and just take you through a couple of the individual basses. As you can see, there's 2 pages here, so there's a lot to go through. I'll just do like 4 or 5 just to give you a feeling for the variety of them. I don't think of a cinematic bass as one thing. It's a different kind of flavor for different compositions, and for that reason, we multi-sample a variety of modular basses here. And even super soft, sine curvy ones. And then of course you got the wicked stack feature here. You click on it and then you can just start combining basses until you get like the perfect sound. Another aspect of the first part of the demo are these beautiful cinematic pads. We wanted to make some pads that just works right out of the box. Take a long time to create them when we have these analog setups, but you can just enjoy them right on the keys. Let me just take you through a couple of them. They're so beautiful. All the analog modular goodness is just oozing and shimmering through them. Really, really happy with how these turned out. And they're just so much fun. The mod wheel dresses them so gracefully with that extra control. You can either open or close them, and they're long. They will just keep on cascading in their own analog beauty. And I had great fun moving the pitch bend around at the demo. As you could hear in the last example here, just moving it slightly creates these beautiful bends. And if you do a couple of tracks, and in this case, a couple of different pads and basses, you can really get this super organic thing going. I also got a couple of our more contemporary sound design elements underneath the basses and the pads. These are more disturbing type of drones. In this case, a couple of sounds from our Cybernetics bank here. Let me just show you. These are great, dark, disturbing scoring elements. See when they're... The vocal pads are coming from the old Andromeda synthesizers that we love. We were lucky enough to get our hands on one and just do these. They almost sounds like samples, like these sort of choral patches. But we took a long time to really try to create something that would sort of seem choral but not, and yet have the beautiful analog goodness around it. All that fat bass is coming from combining analog basses plus stacked analog basses. I'm also adding the Bartok pizzicato from our 66 cellos and then some additional stuff from our 66 trombones, really just to fatten up the sound and give it a little more of an orchestral feel. And then the main bulk of the demo begins with the themes and everything is getting introduced. And for this one, I'm using a variety of our vocal percussion patches in the library. They're super awesome. They're tempo synced to your DAW, so they just fit the tempo. I'm also adding the cinematic clocks from our Equinox library just to help with the rhythmic definition on the top of the mix. One of the cool features in our Hybrid Tools interface is our sequencer. This allows you to arpeggiate the notes in a multitude of ways and essentially make all these analog synthesizers into full-on tempo-synced arpeggiations. A couple of times throughout the demo, you just click here and then you get access to the gate so you can tempo sync the rhythms even tighter. And then we move into the main bulk of the demo. The theme is totally unfolded and then this super dark ending. And with this one, I also used our Anthology legato both for violins and cellos and used the same kind of detuning that I'm doing with the French horn and the synthesizers. I don't know why I'm on this weird detuning exploratory journey, but I think there's something neat about using traditional instruments in the same sort of detuned way we do with analog. That's really the premise of this whole lasting and having all these pitch bends weave in and out. It's kind of funny when I composed it because I was thinking you have your chords and they're slightly detuned at times. And then I detune the different melodies and counterpoints as well. So there's sort of a swirling motion and it's not using any theory or anything. It's just listening to what sounded right in the composition. All these notes weaving in and out of each other. You should try it. It's kind of a cool, interesting trick. I'm gonna do some more. I'm just constantly breaking the notion of what music should be. You know, we tend to use our conventions, but we often forget just to try out new things. There's a pitch bender on all our orchestral instruments that's there for a reason. And the melodic sequence and the chords are pretty simple. Try to check down here on the pitch bender and see how much I move the legato. I'm also doing with the synthesizers here just to create that detuning. So every time I find resolution in the theme, all the notes come together, and every time they're sort of more exploring and asking the questions, they tend to get a little more wide. Yeah, it's like true detuning for analog synths and legato horns. And if you check down here on the pitch bender, you can see that it got fairly dramatic in terms of moving the strings around. Just having fun, you know? Also, let me try to just isolate all the Phenex elements so you can get an idea about how much is actually coming exclusively from Phenex. Then there's this last segment of the demo where things take an even darker turn. I'm using the cello legato from Anthology together with the pads and basses, again in that detuned fashion. If you notice down here on the pitch bender, you can see how much I bend it. This is what Hybrid Tools Phenex is all about. It's the analog basses, the analog pads, analog strings, vocal pads as well, all the vocalizations, and the unique many contemporary scoring effects in the library as well. As you can hear, it's super warm and analog and just rich of that goodness that it otherwise takes a whole modular freaking rack to get going. And as I mentioned in the beginning, for me, this is a workhorse library. This is one of those things that's gonna live in my template because it's fast and easy to use, and it sounds phenomenal out of the box, and it makes context sort of come alive in a way that it otherwise couldn't with all these beautiful analog oscillators. But before we wrap it up, let me just show you one more thing that's unrelated to the demo, but I was sitting and jamming with this guitar thing we're working on, and I just want to show you how nimble it is on the keys. I'll just play an improvised solo over the last part we just heard, and I can't wait for you guys to try it out. This is a completely different concept of sampling that we've been working on for many years, and this is just the first little sneak peek into one of the things that it's capable of, which is creating more or less photorealistic guitar solos.